The top of League Two saw an absolutely massive game on Saturday. It was first v third. It was Walsall against Wimbledon. It was two teams not in good form, and they shared the points. Perhaps predictably, but it needed a Taylor Allen free kick from Walsall. George, this is centre back, left centre back in a three. Taylor Allen, whose left peg is among the best in the whole league, to the tune of 15 goal contributions now. At least two of them have been winners in 1-0 wins. This one, to avoid defeat against Wimbledon from 1-0 down, probably just as important as those.
Massive, massive goal. Yeah. Walsall are having to firefight what is now a really, really difficult run of games at probably the worst possible moment. We've spoken a lot about their recent demise. They are still the league leaders, and they're winless now in six. They've drawn four of those. But when you consider now, they're winless in seven, I should say, drawing five of those. A home game against Wimbledon, an away trip to Donny on Tuesday night, and then a home game against Port Vale. They just have to navigate that, and then things become a lot easier, or look a lot easier on paper, with Barrow, Harrogate, Newport, Accrington and Crewe to finish. They're doing it okay. Like, when Wimbledon took the lead here, it was another game where it was a really tight game where Walsall were by no means much better than the opposition. Dons, who are themselves a really good defensive side, but not very good at holding on to a lead. It was a good finish from Bagil, finishing into the bottom right-hand corner from a loose ball. It was another goal that Walsall have conceded from outside the box, which just seems to be the case in basically all of their games at the moment. For Dons, it'll be mightily frustrating for them to squander another lead. It's just I think that's bugged them not only this season but last season too, especially off the back of the ridiculous game against Barrow on the week before, with the going 2-0 up and going into injury time and drawing the game 2-2. It's hard to know what to make of these two right now. Where I think both of them are playing okay and are absolutely in position to have a big say in the promotion push. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Walsall navigate these two games relatively well they've got coming up. I don't know if they'll win either, but I'd be surprised if they were to lose both, let's say, because I don't think they are, as much as they've lost their ability just to dominate games, they're still very much a solid side who offers some threat going forward. But at the moment, would I say that either are the best team in the league, or even in the top three best teams in the league? Probably not.
But it's quite hard to nail down exactly who is. Wimbledon, as you say, they've dropped from third to fifth with that result, which is really painful, particularly having got ahead. I mean, Walsall, I think it's 2 wins in 15 league games. Still top of the league, though. Still top of the league. Still with a 1-point cushion to Bradford, because Bradford drew 0-0 with Accrington. Very much a match that happened. Bradford have definitely lost some of their pizzazz, some of their forward momentum. They've won just one of their last 4 games, so it's not like they are continuing to fly. And then we had another massive game, not only a spicy derby game between Crewe and Port Vale, George, but it was also a Crewe side with designs on regaining or reclaiming their playoff position, as they've been sliding down the table over the last few months, against a Vale side who wanted a shot at the top 3, missed their chance in midweek, where had they beaten Barrow, they'd have been 3 clear of Wimbledon heading into the weekend. Instead, they lost 1-0 at home to Barrow, so they tripped up, just like everyone else seems to, only to get this late win against Crewe on Saturday and head into the top 3 now.
Yeah, but this is kind of the story, isn't it, of League Two? Like, there was one team for quite a lot of it who were really good, and that was Walsall, and they racked up a big lead. But apart from that, and even I'm even including Bradford's incredible winning run into this, but there just haven't been teams who are consistently just way better than the Oppo, and that kind of feels like the case of Port Vale, where this was a game where they were probably just about better. A really late header from Jaden Stockley won it for them. Crewe maybe edged the first half. Port Vale definitely the dominant force in the second half, missing opportunities to win the game. But as you say, against Barrow, they hit the woodwork 4 times, as we've seen a lot on social media. But they came unstuck against a Barrow side who themselves are in decent form. It just feels like a league where the quality between, if you take out some of the poorest performing teams in the league, you take them out of the equation, there's just so little to pick between those at the top.
Let me tell
And
you what Me While Woo Woo said in the comments section last
okay,
week in the
amazing name.
run-in analysis, which involved us. As you literally just scratched your head as I was about to say, we've been scratching our heads a bit about, who wants promotion, we kept saying last week. Well, Me While Woo Woo says, we watch so much football where the results seem preordained. Liverpool are going to beat Wolves. England are going to beat Latvia. Real peril is rarer and rarer in football. And then there is League Two. It's not that no one wants promotion, it's that the league is stupidly hard, stupidly close, and most teams can beat most teams. I'd suggest League Two is how every league should be. And when people lose their minds because Palace have won at Man City, that is the signal of a broken structure. It's a joy to watch League Two this year, not just because of Bradford's results, but because this is how a football league should work.
Meanwhile, Woo, he's a sage. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's why we've said it before. League Two is what everyone says the Championship is. The Championship is the most unpredictable league in the world. No, it's not. League Two is the most unpredictable league in the world. League Two is the league where, because it's really rare in League Two that there's just a totally dominant force. Games are normally relatively end to end. Teams normally have chances within games to score goals. And even though, if you look at the underlying numbers, Doncaster are fairly comfortably the best team in the league in terms of an XG ratio perspective, especially in the last couple of months. But then within their games, you still see, it's rare that you see Doncaster just grind out a regulation 2-0 win and stop the opposition from doing much. Like it's fascinating. It's hard to analyse because, when you say how good are Port Vale, well, they're good enough that they're probably going to win quite a lot of points, but they're probably not quite good enough to be dominant going forward unless they have a slice of luck. And that's what it's going to come down to. Like whoever wins promotion this season at League Two, again, I think it's not going to be because someone goes and puts together a run of form where they play 7 games and they pick up 18 points because they've raised their level. It's just going to be who can eke out the results. It's again why I'm kind of thinking that Walsall are going to be okay, because they're going through their tough spell now. They're not as bad as their winless streak suggests. I think it's only a matter of time until they do win games. And as I say, when they get through the next 2, the fixtures fall pretty kindly to them, albeit by my own rule, don't even bother looking at fixtures because everyone's as good as each other.
Yeah, I feel like Donny and Walsall are kind of the main characters this week because they go head to head at Donny on Tuesday night. Donny also play Wimbledon, not this coming Saturday, but the one after. So 2 of the teams are around them and gunning for automatic promotion. Donny had their big win on the weekend, Saturday, 3-0 at home to Carlisle, and they hadn't won in 3 before it. So it was, definitely necessary to get the atmosphere turning in their direction once again. But Carlisle did have quite a lot of chances at 0-0. Certainly were very competitive at that point in the game. Didn't make it easy for Carlisle at all. For Doncaster at all. So didn't necessarily have it easy in the first half. Did pull away quite nicely. They're a team that I think once they're ahead, very difficult to handle because absolutely electric in transition at their best. Owen Bailey put them ahead. Jordan Gibson got a goal, which I think he really needed. I know that he'd taken so many shots over the last month or 2, but hadn't scored. Fans getting on his back a little bit. He'd got hooked at half time in the game before international break where Donny didn't play. But McCann started him and he did the business with a nice individual goal. Some of the most embarrassing defending you'll see all season from the Carlisle backline. And Clifton finished comfortably for 3-0. So big win for Donny. Notts back in winning ways as well. George, they're another team that we've questioned heavily over the last month or so. They went to Newport and had it fairly cosy.
Yeah, they did. And a protagonist in terms of a player in Charlie Whittaker who they signed on a free transfer in January. Quite weird. You don't often see this. It feels like a very summary transfer. A player who had done really good things in PL2 for Everton, and they signed him on a 6-month deal. I'm pretty sure they'll be looking to extend that 6-month deal quite quickly because he was brought in as one of the players to attempt to replace Dan Crowley, who moved to MK Dons, and he looks really good. This was his 3rd and 4th goal in a Notts County shirt. He plays as number 10. He's a massive goal threat. His record, goal scoring record in PL2 was very strong, and he took both of these goals incredibly well. He looks to my eye, like a player who, given this is his first taste of first team men's football, has a very high ceiling. and has a really appealing profile too. So, Newport, their season looks pretty much over. A good time for Notts County to go there and do it, and then they did it pretty convincingly with maybe a new star as the star man. Interested to see how his contract situation progresses from here. I mean, you'd think
Yeah,
maybe they'd have an option. It would seem rogue to sign a player on a 6-month deal from the Premier League academy and not basically showcase his talent without having some kind of a
yeah.
ability to extend it.
I'm sure there'll be an option, and off the back of that, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets extended. It's amazing how often David McGoldrick is mentioned in our Sunday scouting reports from opposition fans on Twitter. Kashmir Knit saying, thoroughly dejected Newport fan in peace. David McGoldrick is a joke. Fantastic player, shouldn't be in this league. The lads finished for their second as well, was stunning. We were terrible. Bring on a summer of forgetting all about us. I imagine there are quite a few fan bases starting to feel like that as we tick into April and the sun starts to come out. Massive game, and result was Colchester 1, Grimsby Town 2. Grimsby, 4-point cushion now in 7th spot. They are holding everyone else off, and they did so here with a fully deserved victory. They're just the better team on the night.
Yes, I'm so surprised.
On a horrendous
David
pitch.
Artell is doing it again.
David Artell, I think, is doing it again. Simply the better side. Kieran Green put them ahead in the second half. Edwards with another terrific solo goal for Colyu. He's having a fantastic couple of weeks, just showing a player with that skill set playing as a wide forward in League Two when they have a good month. They are just pretty much unplayable. But after the pitch basically bobbling meant that I think it was Flanagan, the Colyu centre-back, tried to take a touch and it just bounced off his knee to a Grimsby player. Decent transition attack. And there was Evan Curry on the left side of the box to absolutely smash in the winner. So, I mean, couldn't be more impressed with Grimsby, really. I just love the fact that, as I see it anyway, they managed to get themselves in a position in the first 2/3 of the season where they got absolutely every last morsel out of their performances in order to be in the playoff picture. And then instead of being like, okay, well, let's just see, we'll just keep playing like this, it'll be fine, see what happens, they've just got better, definitively better defensively. Still a really good counter-attacking team, look just more comfortable in their own skin, and right now are the team to catch because they've got this 4-point cushion over Colyu and over Crew Alex as well, whose slide down the table has not been very pleasing for that fan base. Are there still two teams in keep an eye on them category, George, in the form of Salford City and Chesterfield? They are 6 and 7 points respectively off 7th with a game in hand, and they both won away from home over the weekend.
Yeah, Salford with a pretty topsy-turvy. What is it about games between Salford and Bromley? A 3-2 win where Cole Stockton scored 2 goals either side of Kelly Namai, coming back from 1-0 down. This is back-to-back away wins for Salford now. And as I mentioned, I wouldn't be massively surprised if they do go on a bit of a run now. Whether it's enough, I'm not entirely sure because Grimsby's form has kept them clear of those chasing behind them. But off the back of a pretty desperate run of form, it does feel like Salford are starting to trend on an upwards trajectory again. And we know that Carl Robinson's side do go on these kind of streaks. So keep an eye on them. Albeit probably quite a good time to go to Bromley, who are themselves have little to play for beyond Michael Cheek trying to win League Two top goal scorer, which he took one step closer to doing with a consolation goal relatively late on. And then Chesterfield. Chesterfield was a very weird game, I would say. They went to a Barrow team who've been in really good form. I think Andy Wing's doing a great job there. They're the big outliers when it comes to expected goals. Well, I think they're 4th or 5th for XG ratio since the beginning of February, suggesting that Andy Wing is doing some pretty good stuff and one to keep an eye on for next year. But so there were 5 shots in the first 49 minutes of this game. All went to Barrow, 2 of which came in the same phase of play, with Aaron Presley being set through 1-on-1, taking a really heavy touch, having his first shot kind of smothered by the keeper, and then hooking one back towards goal before it was cleared. So they didn't have a shot, Chesterfield, until the 59th minute. But then from the 59th minute, there were 4 shots, all 4 from Chesterfield, and they scored one of theirs, which was a deflected effort from range.
A deflected Trivella from Michael Jacobs.
Yeah, like it was one of those shots where it was, if he doesn't get deflected, it's either just going to waft wide or the goalkeeper's going to pick it up on the second bounce. I'm not going to pretend that there was much in this display from Chesterfield to suggest that they are back or at it. But it's an important win against a side who are playing very well, who'd just beaten Port Vale in the midweek. So at this stage of the season, it's the points that matters rather than the process. And yeah, as I said, I think Grimsby's form is going to make it difficult for these teams to get him, but they're certainly going to try and keep them honest.
Yeah, home to Carlisle, Chesterfield are in midweek, and are Carlisle now done? Almost 9 points from safety, 7 games to go. Not only did they lose 3-0 to Donny, but the two teams, Morecambe were below them, now they're above them. They won 1-0, and Tranmere, most significantly, also winning 2-0 against Cheltenham. It means that it's 11 points from 5 games for Tranmere. Andy Crosby has come in and done more than they could have expected. And, of course, it just gives more fuel to the fans' theory that Nigel Adkins' era was strung out 2-3 months longer than it should be based on performances and results. The team just looked insipid under Adkins, and they look much more up for it under Crosby. Regan Hendry has been a star for them, controlling games in midfield, but a number of other players that just hadn't really contributed positively, stepping up in the last few games as well, from Sam Finley in midfield to Cameron Norman, who scored the second goal here, Jordan Turnbull at the back, Chris Merry, Josh Hawkes came in from the cold and has added something to their attack as well. It's we often, George, I think we're guilty as neutrals of, like, whether we're looking at automatics, playoffs, or relegation, because we want it to go down to the wire. Sometimes we get overexcited about the teams who are chasing getting a good result or two. What could this mean? Oh, if they keep winning, well then, yeah, of course they could find their way to safety. And we probably, we're almost holding up those who they're chasing as like the bad guys who we want something interesting. But I think it's just worth taking a step back and just looking at what Tranmere have done in the last few weeks under a ton of pressure and applauding them.
For sure. And Andy Crosby himself, who, let's remember that he took over Port Vale under really difficult circumstances when Darrell Clark had to take a leave of absence, and he delivered a really strong run of form that led up to the playoffs, which they eventually won and won promotion out of League One. So there is precedent for him being pretty good at this, and he looks like he is pretty good at this. I remember him as a player for Oxford. He was unbelievable, proper kind of captain, centre-back who never missed a penalty. And he seems to be taking those leadership qualities into his managerial career. I mean, he's taken Tranmere, given them a massive shake, and woken them up to the danger that they were in, which, as you say, they should have been shaken up a long time ago. Mm. So impressive what they're doing. You've got to feel sorry for Morecambe, who are making a fist of this, but things are just getting away from them, even if they are going to win games. Because you'd be looking at the teams above Tranmere, and it probably feels pretty unlikely. I mean, 7 games to go. If they can get to kind of 44, I guess, and that's forcing the issue for Harrogate and Accrington to pick up at least one more win, but it's probably quite unlikely that they won't do that.
Well, yeah, they're at home to Cheltenham, who seem pretty beachy on Tuesday night. Can Morecambe get a back-to-back win for what would be the first time this season? If they do, you're looking at Tranmere, they're away at Harrogate. So it's kind of, if Morecambe can win, you'll be able to take some positives either way, because either Harrogate will win and therefore the gap will be back down to 4 points between Morecambe and Tranmere, or Tranmere will win, in which case it'll be Harrogate that Morecambe are chasing and there'll be a 6-point gap. I guess a draw might be the best result, as it kind of would keep them both in touching distance. Again, this is all under the assumption that Morecambe will win back-to-back for the first time this season. For Swindon, who they beat, news just before the weekend that Ian Holloway has signed a new contract. He'll be the manager next season for sure. He signed a 3-year contract. Whether or not he'll see out 3 years, most managers don't, but it's certainly good for the club to get that locked in. He's obviously had a really good impact, and just got to hope that can extend. Be interested to see how they approach squad building over the summer. Probably quite differently, I would imagine, to how they have done in the last few years. Harrogate 1, Gillingham 1 wasn't very helpful for either side. A penalty each, and a big chance squandered near the end from Harrogate forward Kersons. George, Gareth Ainsworth is the Gillingham manager now. He moved from Shrewsbury to Gillingham. Now, I must admit, that aspect of it, there'll be some people scratching their heads about leaving a club for one in the league below and one that's, in the bottom half of the league below. I completely understand that aspect of it. I do think that if you try and ignore league position and what league they're in right now, the fact is that both teams will be in League Two next season. And right now, based on just trajectory and how I perceive things behind the scenes, I think it's more likely that Gillingham will challenge for promotion than Shrewsbury challenge for promotion in League Two next season. So I kind of understand it from a ambition point of view, from a stable ownership point of view. At the same time, I must admit, I don't really like the appointment for Gills. Maybe I'm guilty of being a bit hot and cold on Ainsworth, but where I'm at with him right now is, I think it's unlikely that he will ever have a managerial tenure like he did at Wycombe before. I think there was something, God, for want of a better word, something slightly magical about the meeting of Gareth Ainsworth and Wycombe Wanderers and what they were able to do together under very specific circumstances where it just worked for all parties. Walking into this Gillingham structure, this Gillingham ownership with Gillingham expectations, I'm not 100% sure if I love this appointment for them, partly because if Gareth Ainsworth is going to have a big say in recruitment, I'm already fairly confident in what sort of a squad he's going to build. I think it'll be experienced. I think it'll be prioritising certain attributes rather than others. And it's not necessarily a squad that I think is a great one to hand over if the Gareth Ainsworth era doesn't go very well. And so in that sense, I'm worried that they're just going to be part of this cycle where they hire a manager, they go all in, they expect the world from them, and they recruit to that. And then it all ends in tears within 6 months, and then you're left with a real mess of a squad which has been recruited for various different managers. That's my very pessimistic spin on this at the moment. I'm hoping for Jill's fans' sake, you might have a rosier view on the Ainsworth appointment.
And my other concern about it is that Gillingham under Brad Gallinson haven't shown immense amounts of patience with managerial tenures. And it feels like Gareth Ainsworth, you just need to say, you're our boss and we are going to retain faith in you. It might take a couple of years, but you are going to build the club in your image, and that's how we're going to have success. I think if you expect Ainsworth to come in and deliver success immediately, you're probably going to end up with a squad recruited in the summer to play a certain way, and then he's going to leave, and then the next manager's going to have to come in and have a squad that probably isn't suited to what they want to do. So, yeah, that would be my... Mark Bonner wasn't given much time. We were told, weren't we, that Coleman was to the end of the season, and that's ended early. Stephen Clements wasn't given much time. There seems to be a real desire at Gillingham to get success now, and I do not think Gareth Ainsworth is a manager you turn to for success now. I think Gareth Ainsworth is someone that you say, look, we want you to basically oversee a long-term project and give you quite a lot of power to do so, and we will understand that it might take some time, but I don't see any evidence or proof that that's the way that they see things.
And last but not least, Fleetwood went to MK and won 4-2. We saw sublime and ridiculous here. Fleetwood's goals that made it 2-1 and 3-1. I beg you to go and watch them if you haven't already, because I think you'll agree with me when I say it's the worst defending I've seen at any level this season. And then the great thing is, just when you're feeling like genuine anger at what you've just seen defensively from Milton Keynes, you watch the next highlight, which is a ball over the top, Scott Hogan running onto it and connecting with an over-the-shoulder volley. Unbelievably sweetly, flying into the top corner. It's like when it's dropping over his shoulder and you see he's going to shoot, you have an image of what you want to see happen. And it never happens, right? And Hogan just did it, as if it was like a video game, and you just you press the button at the perfect time. It just explodes off his boot into the top corner. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if that's a contender for goal of the season in the EFL with the awards in probably sometime next month. Absolute delight. So thank you, Robin van Persie impersonator Scott Hogan. That'll do for League Two this week. Big fixtures on Tuesday night, so make sure you're across them. We'll be back again for a roundup next Monday.